Well, Stuart and I are both having trouble seeing today because that south sun, the sun coming so low in the sky at that low angle, well, it's really, really bright. It's kind of hard to see what we're filming. So if there's any hiccups, that's why. So what we've got on tap for today is my garden assessment. What things I am finally crying uncle on. I am not going to fight it anymore. Some things that I have to look forward to the future. A lot of things that I want to record in my garden journal, and thanks to the person who sent me a shout out and said it was fun for her to see my garden journal in the New York Botanical Garden gift shop. Oh, wow. So, I know, so that was a kick for me, so thank you for letting me know that. I'm going to be recording all sorts of stuff because it's not just about now and what needs to get done, it's about the future in this fall season, but also the future for next coming spring, and it's kind of a lot of what to do when. So what do you say, Stuart?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay, I want you guys to make sure that you stay all the way to the end because I've got something so fun, so scary, so exciting.
Weird,
yes,
freaky,
weird, freaky, and definitely it's garden related.
It'll
so
make
make sure you make sure you stay on to the end. It's really fun and quirky. So walk this way, Stuart, and I'm going to show you the progress that I've made on my seeding experiment, I guess, in my seeding trough. I've got one trough going, and that soon will be devoid of all of its Thai basil. I'll be pulling that out and converting that to another seeding trough. This has been remarkably successful. You may recall that in the past I had foxglove seedlings in here, and I've transplanted those out into the garden. Now, on September 18th, you can see that is when I overseeded my front yard with Champion Annual Seed, and then I seeded in this seeding trough some gay feather, Liatris spicata, and some Valerian officinalis. So here you go. And I'll show you these packages right here. I had them tucked into my journal, and we apologize for the uneven light. So these needed cold weather for stratification so that they could germinate. So I thought, well, I will probably go ahead and seed them in this trough, protect it from squirrels with these garden cloches, and then maybe by next spring, since they need cold to germinate, that by next spring I'd have enough seedlings in here that I could then plant out. Well, it exceeded my expectations. Germination exceeded my expectations, and you can see here, look at all of the seedlings I have. Now the thing is, I don't know which is which. I believe this is the Valerian, and I can do a plant ID on that just using an app, but you can see how many of them germinated, and actually a few more of them germinated but got scruffed up by the squirrels, which is why I had to cover this to protect it. So I'm just going to be keeping an eye on this to see what they do, and what I will probably do, because these are perennials, what I will probably do is let them continue to grow on in here in my seeding trough, and then when my garden is cleared out of a lot of the annuals, the pentas, the lantana and things like that, and when I am preparing to plant my bulbs, I will then probably also be able to tell exactly where I need to position these new perennials for next season. So I am thinking about the future already because that's what we do in the fall. So let's move on to the next thing. Okay, this falls in the I am crying uncle. I'm tired of fighting it. I'm tired of watering them, and I'm just going to make some changes. So I've got these pumpkins tucked into these urns, and I'm going to take them out. And in addition, I am going to take out all of these annuals that are growing in here. Some of these I actually overwintered last year, and I am just really tired of them because I'm tired of watering them. And look what I'm going to do. They're also undeniably root bound. So all of that soil needs to be replaced and it needs to be replenished. So I am going to discard both of these root balls in their entirety in preparation, and even though they looked kind of cute with these annuals still coming out of them, I'm like I say, because they're so root bound, I'm constantly having to water them even this late in the season, because it's really still been inordinately warm. Okay, look at how root bound they are. So out with these. What will go in here, you ask? Well, let me show you. And by the way, this gives me an opportunity to completely replenish the soil in here. I'm sure it had consumed all of the nutrients. It was having trouble, obviously, retaining moisture. This way I can check to make sure I've got good drainage, that my drainage holes aren't clogged, and I can kind of start over. And I'm starting over not only horticulturally, but aesthetically, because I'm thinking about this winter and having winter interest in here. So along with my philosophy of stealing from Peter to pay Paul, I am looking in the garden for some of the better boxed wood that I've already started shaping into small balls. So I've got a candidate right here, and I believe I've got another candidate over here. Stuart, if you want to follow me. I've got another one right here. And I probably have a couple more in other areas. I will select them based on symmetry so that they're both approximately the same size. The root ball will be small enough at this point that I can plant them in there. And then what I can do is I can take clippings, and I'm thinking, you know, post-Thanksgiving, as we're going into the holiday season, the perfect time to be clipping your arborvitaes and things is around, for me, it's around the holidays when I want to use all of this greenery. So I'll just take some clippings of this greenery, I'll plant those little boxwoods in place, and then I will just stick some of this greenery, making a little skirt around those boxwoods, tuck in some pine cones, maybe some red berries, and I think it will be charming for the holidays. And then later I can underplant them with some annuals that will spill over the side. Next spring then, again thinking to the future, I can either leave them in there, or I can plant those boxwood balls someplace else out in the garden or in larger pots, and then renew what I had in the past with some more colorful annuals for next year, but completely revitalized. So that's my plan. What do you think, Stuart? Stealing from Peter to pay Paul, both in plantings and with clippings. So that's my second thing on my to-do list for this Wednesday walkabout, and I will make sure to record everything I do in my garden journal. Now let's move on to the next thing. Now make sure that you check back with me next week, because I thought I could go ahead and do this for you today, but sadly I am all out of fresh potting mix. So that you're just going to have to wait to see these in their completion, but you get an idea of what I am doing, and I think it'll work just fine. So I know it's on my list of things to do today and to get today, and that's more potting soil. Okay, so now this is another example. This is another example of crying uncle. I'm tired of fighting it, and I'm just not going to do it anymore. I have really been battling those spotted cucumber beetles all over these dahlias. And even though I've been fighting them, they are coming back more aggressively than ever. Can you see all of them? They just are driving me crazy. And so I've just decided not to fight it anymore. Now I am going to cut off absolutely all of the flowers, and I'm going to discard them because they seem to be the ones that are infected. And even though I've really tried to be mindful of keeping them off of the buds, and even spraying the buds very selectively with neem oil, it just doesn't seem to be deterring them. So here's what I'm going to do, I think, and in fact I'm making this decision right now, and here's my question of the day. If you were me, what would you do? Well, I've got all these buds, and I just keep hoping that they're going to transform themselves into beautiful blooms that I could cut and bring inside. but they're just not doing that. And we almost had a frost warning tonight, Stuart.
Oh, wow.
It didn't get that cold. And even though we still have weeks ahead of us, I think, where we're not going to have a hard freeze, nevertheless, I'm just tired of this. So if you were me, would you cut them back completely? Would you dig them up? Would you just deflower them and leave the buds in place and continue to fight those cucumber beetles? What would you do? And when we come back, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do. Okay, now typically they say that you can't keep dahlia tubers in the ground in Oklahoma. Now your experience might be different than mine, but this year, and I've never tried it before, I've always dug them up and tried to overwinter them very unsuccessfully. This year, I'm going to try just leaving them in the ground and see what happens. It's a gardening risk worth taking. But what I'm going to do right now, because I am tired of all of this mess, is I am going to cut them back pretty hard.
That's pretty hard already.
That's pretty hard. Now, notice I'm not cutting them all the way back to the ground. And it's because I think for them to overwinter, I want to leave a little bit of insulation on the plant itself to protect the bulb. So you can see right here that there's new greenery coming out. Did you see, Stuart? Here, Stuart. Let me give you a cucumber beetle.
I was trying.
You were being so cool and so suave about it. Okay, see down there? There's more new growth coming out there, and I'm gonna just clip that off at that point in time. Now, you guys may know better than me. You may say, "Oh, Linda, you shouldn't have done that," or "Oh, Linda, try this." And honestly, I'm not sure what I'm doing, but it's a gardening risk worth taking, and I'm just going to take it and see what happens. And if they really start to rot because I inappropriately cut them back at the wrong place or whatever, then I can just pull them out. These were little seedlings that were started by a friend of mine. She seeded them and brought them to me. So essentially, even though they were very precious to me, they were free plants. So I can always start over again next year. And in addition to all of those cucumber beetles, I have really had a problem. Let's get a close up here if we can, Stuart. Of lots of grasshoppers. They have been everywhere.
Oh, yeah, I didn't see them.
Yeah, they're everywhere, and they have really been eating lots of the foliage on my plant. So that's kind of driving me crazy. Okay, so I'm going to cut all these back. It will give better air circulation to everything else that's up here. I don't know that I actually liked the placement of where I planted them last year, so I can take note of that. Also, I think I mentioned to you earlier that this had also, see, they just are annoying me on every level, that also developed powdery mildew, which didn't arrive till very late in the season. See, already that rose is going, I can breathe now. So I'm going to do this with the remainder of these two plants, and I'm also going to be doing it with some other dahlias that I have in the garden, and that will do two things. It will remove the annoyance for me, but also it will let me know what opportunities I have for planting my remaining foxglove and those perennials in my seeding trough.
3, 2.
Okay, now I'm being careful to clean up all of the debris around these plants. I am going to spray them one more time with neem oil, but what I'm going to note in my garden journal is in late winter, I want to come back and in anticipation of the cucumber beetles, the Japanese beetles, spider mite, all of those things, I'm going to come back and I think I'm going to do just a spray of the entire garden with some kind of horticultural dormant oil spray. Now there's different varieties that you can use. You can use neem oil. Safer has a horticultural oil, I believe, Bonide, and I'll try to put some of those links below. But most importantly, I am putting on my calendar, my garden calendar, and my regular Google calendar, that in late winter, if conditions are accommodating, it's not too hot, it's not too cold, it's not too windy, according to the package instructions, that I really need to take a preemptive measure, and I want to do whatever I can to interrupt the life cycle of those pests, and really any kind of pests I have in the garden. I'm also going to be doing that milky spore treatment that one of you told me about. So in my, always the first line of attack is to prevent problems rather than addressing them. That's what I'm going to do. So put dormant oil spray on your shopping list, but also on your to-do list for late winter. Okay, you should be using your garden journal more than ever this time of year because it's such a good planting and prevention device. And by the way, it's on sale now on Amazon. Gosh, it's just like $16 now or something, so you might want to buy some for Christmas presents. But something else that I'm starting to record and that I am paying attention to is every day from now to the foreseeable future, I'm going to be checking my 10-day forecast because I want to see if there's going to be a real cold front coming through that will put things like all of my topiaries and my tender things that need to go under cover for the winter at risk. This year, I'm going to keep these beauties out as long as possible, not only because they just are such foundational plants in my garden, but also because I want them to be in the greenhouse for as little time as possible, because what they really want is to be outside. Now, what I will be doing before they go undercover to overwinter these plants in the greenhouse is that I will come out and I will really check them for any signs of infection. I might also give them a light prune because remember, these are going to go indoors and I want to reduce their size just a little bit. And then I am again going to take a preemptive measure and I will probably really give these a good spritz of insecticidal soap in case there's kind of any problems that I identify. So that's one thing that I'm going to do. I'm going to be thinking about overwintering my plants, and we'll talk about that a little bit more when we get to the backyard. But now I'm at a decision point and I want your input on this. So, you know that I have this rhythm and repetition of these eastern redbuds across my western upper terrace, and I love them. In the spring they were absolutely beautiful. They have performed so successfully. They've put on a good bit of growth. When they turn gold this fall, I think they're absolutely beautiful. And when I start pruning them in that very distinctive way that I like, with kind of a long lion's tail. And Stuart, right here, can we put a picture in from the old house to show how those other ones were so beautifully pruned? So in other words, I am very, very pleased with their performance. And there goes the FedEx truck. I'm very pleased with their performance. So what is my decision point and what do I want your counsel on? Okay, look here. Inside this boxwood village, near the window box, look what came up. Another redbud.
Oh, wow.
So you may recall that at the fairy tale house, nearly all of those redbuds that I pruned so beautifully, those were all volunteers that I just let grow. So here's my question. Do I let this continue to grow? It's got 2 trunks right now. And I'm thinking, oh, if I do that, this trunk can kind of grow and arch over this way, giving a little bit of shade to the window box. Stuart, I see your raised hand.
Well, I have a question. Is it any danger of damaging the foundation? Is it growing into a whole tree?
Okay, that's a great question. I would probably worry about it if it weren't such a relatively small ornamental tree. Okay? Certainly.
Not a big trunk, you're saying.
No, if there were like an oak or something, and if I think that that may be a problem, again, this is just a gardening risk worth taking. I have nothing to lose.
Yeah, that's true.
So I can remove it at any time. I can let it continue to grow and give me just a small amount of shade on this porch and on my window box, and also on my boxwood that would appreciate a little bit of shade from that southern and western sun. It would complete the rhythm and repetition of all of these red buds across the space. I could keep it smaller, almost like a shrub, and it will bloom pink again in the spring when all of the tulips and things are in bloom. So what say you? Do I leave this here, or do I go ahead and take it out immediately before it gets any larger? Here is what I'm thinking about doing, that I'm just gonna leave it here for the winter. At a minimum, I'm gonna let it go ahead and grow into spring and see if it puts out some blooms and if I kind of like the effect and how well it grows over the winter. Or as Stuart pointed out, brilliant observation, Stuart. Do I just want to remove it completely? Okay, so that's my question I want your input on. Does it stay, or does it go, or does it stay for a little while and then goes? What do you think? Okay, so I put your input in my comments below, and then we'll take a break here and move on to the next thing. So I'm sure my neighbors want to know, what does she do when she's just out walking around staring at her garden for hours on end? She does it, I know, she does it almost every day, that crazy garden lady. Is she just wool gathering? What is she doing? Well, actually, I am constantly assessing what is getting too crowded, what doesn't look the way I envisioned it to look, what actually was more successful than I expected and what was less successful, and what changes am I going to make accordingly. Some of them I can do now, some of them I can do weeks from now, some of them I will do next spring. Again, all things that I want to record in my garden journal. So if you are noting a theme for today, it's all about the importance of your garden journal. So here is one thing that I have noticed. So I don't know how many sunshine ligustrum planted up in there. You can see I absolutely love them, and they did beautifully. In fact, some of them did even better than I anticipated. And consequently, because they did better, I needed fewer of them to get the effect that I wanted. So I had two small ones that were planted just behind this large boxwood ball. And what did I do? I gifted them to my friend Victor, who is starting a new bed, and he needs to fill it up. So I love it when my plants find a good home. Now, something else that I noticed is I was trying to decide this blue point juniper back here that was actually a volunteer at my other house, and I planted it here, and it is doing very, very well. And ultimately, I think I want to prune it into a really large gumdrop shape or a really large ball shape. So, but I was still thinking, well, do I want to remove it, or is it too big for the space? And I thought, no, what I just need to do is give it more room to do its thing. And so what I'm going to do is I am going to relocate the apple blossom rose that's in front of it. Do we have some visitors, Stuart?
Sure, something.
Yeah, that's planted in front of it and kind of crowding it out. And I'm going to take that and I am going to plant it in this void right here, where some of this sedum that I planted earlier is struggling a little bit. I can easily relocate this sedum, and there's more than enough room in here for that rose, particularly if I relocate one of these boxwood, better boxwood. So I can put that in here, and then my rhythm and repetition of this pink bloom will continue all the way up and down the brick wall, because that first planted rose is right here. Then I have another one right here. Then I have another one right here. That one will then be relocated over here, and then here's another one right here. so then I will have the same cadence of bloom all up and down the wall, and that will make me happy, and it will give this plant, it will make the plant happy too, because it will give it a little bit more room. We also had some problems with watering along here, and Kayla and I figured out what we thought the issue was, and in essence this just wasn't getting quite enough water on this side, so we put some risers on these irrigation heads, and now the roses won't suffer so much. So that's another thing that I am going to note. What was too crowded, what needed to be thinned out, what can I do with those plants before they move on to another place in my garden or maybe to a friend's garden. So let's take a look at some other overwintering garden journal situations in the backyard. Okay, one thing that I've been very, very pleased with is the performance, the fall performance of my geraniums. They finally have been able to really battle off any of the budworms they had with that, and a little bit of help from BT. I continue to deadhead them. They like the cooler temperatures, and for me, typically they always perform better in the fall and earlier in the spring than they do in the summer. So here's the question: do I want to overwinter these? Now, all but one of these I overwintered last year. Do I want to do it again? And that's my decision, the decision I have to make here in the next few weeks. Do I want to take cuttings and try to just tuck those cuttings into some loose, moist soil? Do I want to cut them back pretty hard and take them in and put them in the greenhouse? What do I want to do? Or do I just want to start fresh? Because some of these are like 3 or 4 years old. Do I just want to start fresh? So that's the decision that I'm going to be making in the next couple of weeks. Let me know what you would do. My inclination right now is to probably let them bloom as long as they can right before, as I keep checking my 10-day forecast, right before I think it's going to get really cold. What I might do is cut them back pretty hard, spray them with insecticidal soap, take them into the greenhouse, and use them again next year, but making a note in my garden journal that I need to refresh the soil on all of them, because that soil is probably tired, exhausted, and needs to be replenished with nutrients and moisture holding capacity. Now I'm going to be doing the same thing over here, Stuart. With all of my dragonwing begonias, I've got to make a decision on these. Now, an additional factor that I'm taking into consideration on these is they seem to have a mild case of whitefly that didn't arrive until late in the season. So do I want to keep these, or do I want to start them over? These both I have had for 2 or 3 years, and I'm sure the soil is really desperately tired. So do I want to just cut them back? Do I want to take cuttings, which for me is just, I just don't like to have lots of cuttings around my house and in the windowsills. I don't have a greenhouse for that kind of thing. So, what should I do? What should I do? My inclination, again, tell me what you would do. My inclination is to cut them back really hard, treat them with an insecticidal soap. A pollinating bee just tried to fly up.
You just said hi to me. Like,
just said hello. I thought it was trying to nest in your beard or fly up your nose.
It was very politely flying right in front of me.
Yeah, hibernate in your nose. But that's what I want to do. Again, I'm just going to be watching the 10-day forecast because they're still pretty happy here, despite the fact that squirrels have been digging in these pots. Next year, note to self, mulch them with gravel so that won't be a problem. And look here in this seeding trough or this seeding pot, look at all of these foxglove that I have remaining to be set out. Now, I've got one more surprise for you. And this just absolutely, well, let's just say it was surprising, it was spooky, it was fun, it was scary, and it's nature related. But it's all those things, isn't it,
Yes, it
Stuart?
is. It's
And
very
I can't wait to show you. So let's take a break, and we'll be right back. And I'll close this Wednesday walkabout with something really fun. Ooh, now that I'm in the shade, Stuart, I'm thinking I need my jacket again. Now, we don't often come in this way, but let's do it today. It was so fun, you guys. Last night, I had some girlfriends. I had my bestie, Deborah, and I had my friend, Linda Lambert, that you are very familiar with. We did a tour of her house and her garden, and her daughter was in town from Virginia. So that was so fun. We had wine and hors d'oeuvres, and we got caught up on a lot of things. Okay, so here is, let me just kind of set the stage. So in the middle of the night, last night, Hubs and I, we heard something. We had no idea what it was, but it happened kind of, it was a noise that happened with some regularity. I wasn't sure. The first time we heard it, I got up and I thought, oh, did I leave some candles burning? Was it the candles I heard popping? And so I got up the first time and I looked around, and no, I did not have any candles burning there. I couldn't figure out anything, what it was. Then it happened again, about 3 hours later in the middle of the night. And my husband heard it too. And I said, okay, it's your turn. So he got up, of course he went to the bathroom. He got up and then he looked around and I said, now here are some things to check on. Could it be, I had a pyramid of apples on the kitchen table. Did they go kerplunk? Did one of my skulls or my skeletons or something fall over? Was that what it was? And he said, I looked around and I could not see anything. Well, by that time I was a little bit mystified and still was able to go back to sleep because it's an old house and sometimes it just makes weird noises. So then I thought maybe it was the ice maker. Then it happened again. And I thought, now this is really crazy. Do I have mice? What is the problem? So this morning I got up with my cup of coffee. Hubs did another tour of the house. He could not discover anything. But knowing that in most cases, women see better than men do, I found out, I discovered the answer. Okay, this is both so cool and so freaky. Some of you may remember that John Turman was here a few weeks ago, and we were kind of decorating some things, fall decor, and he brought me some wisteria seed pods that looked like green suede. They were absolutely beautiful, about this long. And he gifted them to me. And since they were in my color of the month of kind of bone colors, wood colors, kind of a sage green, I used them in decorating. And I had some of them on my mantle. Okay, what had been on my mantle is no longer. And this is what we heard in the middle of the night. These heretofore enclosed wisteria pods had started to explode, and they exploded all over the parlor. All the way, there's one, yeah, it looks like a little turd. All the way over there by the front door, those are the seeds. You can see on the couch, all in front of the fireplace. The skeleton, Stuart, the skeleton didn't even scare them off. The skeleton didn't even scare them off. So they just started exploding everywhere. And as they exploded, it dried and exploded, they torqued into these helix-like structures.
When y'all heard her say this, it was popping.
It was popping.
It's not like they just,
Yeah, like it was like a popping sound. And what I was hearing was like all of this in the quiet of the night, and they were going everywhere. I heard a lot of them obviously up here, and look at how artistically they exploded.
I know,
if I was trying to create a still life out of these seeds, and look at the seeds are just gorgeous. They're just beautiful. I mean, now we know why wisteria is so prolific, don't we? And can get so out of hand.
It's the nature's firework.
But it just exploded everywhere. You can still see the suede green exterior
It had to have dried
of the
or
pod.
something.
Yeah, it had to. And Stuart, of course, is just freaking out, wondering, okay, what happened? Did they all do it simultaneously? Were they like a timing
There
thing?
was some sort of a timer involved in their existence.
And
because
their
they all would
internal
happen on the
mechanism,
same
if
day.
you guys know, this is definitely something we need to research further. But they did it over the course of the night. And Stuart then said, well, are any of them still in pod form? No, not
wanted to wash
one
them.
of them is still enclosed. All of them.
Have you asked John what happened with
Oh, no, I have not.
We've gotta ask
I haven't had a chance. I need to ask him about this. And if he knew and he didn't tell me, why did he not tell me what to
What a great joke to play on somebody.
What to expect? I know what to expect, but they're just beautiful, and I like them as much, if not more, now that they have opened and they've exposed their color of the month interior in that kind of bony white. I mean, they're just. Yes, as if,
so well done.
yes, they
Well
exposed the color of the month as if it was very intentional. Okay, and it just, well, let's just say it was very befitting the season because it was scary. I didn't know what it was. And then it was so fun and it was so surprising. And I challenge you to look for a wisteria seed head and test it out yourself because, oh my gosh, isn't nature wondrous? Isn't it just wondrous? And I can think of no better way to close than on that. Enjoy the nature that surrounds you. That was really fun for me. I hope it was fun for you. And stay tuned this weekend because I think on Sunday, a lot of you have mentioned I haven't done a fall tour of the cottage with decor changes that I've made. And so that may be on the menu. We haven't been back home for a while, Stuart. We've been out at other people's homes and gardens. So we might return to the cottage this Sunday on The Garden Life.